The night, everything changed. The autumn rain fell in steady sheets across the empty downtown streets. Michael pulled his navy coat tighter as he walked toward his car, the sound of his footsteps echoing off the wet pavement. It was nearly midnight, and the city felt abandoned, wrapped in a blanket of mist and streetlight halos. He had just finished another late night at the law firm, reviewing contracts until his eyes burned. The same routine, day after day. Wake up, work, sleep, repeat. At 32, Michael felt like he was living someone else's life, going through the motions without really feeling anything. As he turned the corner onto 5th Street, something caught his eye. A figure sat hunched on a park bench under the pale glow of a street lamp. Even from a distance, he could see the person was shivering violently. Michael slowed his pace. His first instinct was to keep walking. This was downtown after midnight, and he'd learned to mind his own business. But something about the figure's posture, the way she sat with her arms wrapped tightly around herself, made him pause. As he got closer, he could see it was a young woman. She wore a sequin dress that sparkled darkly in the dim light, but it offered little protection against the cold rain. Her long hair hung in wet strands around her face, and her bare shoulders shook with each breath. Michael stopped walking entirely. He recognized her now, Sarah. She danced at the Silver Moon, a club a few blocks away. He'd never spoken to her, but he'd seen her there during the few times his colleagues had dragged him out for drinks. She had always seemed so confident, so full of life on stage. Now she looked small and lost. "Sarah?" he called out softly, stepping closer to the bench. She looked up, startled. Her makeup had run in dark streaks down her cheeks, and her eyes were red from crying. When she saw him, she quickly wiped her face with the back of her hand. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I shouldn't be here. I'll move along." "No, wait." Michael sat down on the far end of the bench, keeping a respectful distance. "You're soaking wet. What happened?" Sarah pulled her arms tighter around herself. For a long moment, she didn't answer. The rain continued to fall, creating tiny rivers that ran along the edge of the sidewalk. "My car broke down," she finally said. "About 6 blocks from here. I was walking home when the rain started, and I couldn't walk anymore." Michael noticed she was barefoot. Her heels sat beside the bench, apparently too painful to wear any longer. "Where do you live?" he asked. "Riverside District," she said, naming a neighborhood that was at least 4 miles away. Michael felt something twist in his chest. Riverside was known for its run-down apartments and late-night dangers. The thought of her walking there alone, in this weather, in that dress, made him uncomfortable. "Listen," he said carefully. "My car is just around the corner. I could give you a ride home." Sarah looked at him with surprise. "You don't even know me." "I know you work hard every night," Michael said. "I know you don't deserve to be stranded out here in the rain." She studied his face for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether to trust him. Finally, she nodded. Michael stood up and shrugged off his coat. "Here, take this." "I can't take your coat," Sarah protested. "You're freezing," he said, draping it around her shoulders. The coat was warm from his body heat, and she immediately pulled it closer. They walked slowly to his car, Sarah's bare feet silent on the wet pavement. Michael unlocked the passenger door and helped her inside, then started the engine and turned the heat up high. As they drove through the quiet streets, Sarah began to talk. The words came slowly at first, then faster, as if a dam had broken inside her. She told him about growing up in foster homes, about aging out of the system at 18 with nowhere to go. She talked about working double shifts at the club just to afford her tiny apartment, about sending money to her younger foster sister who was still in the system. "I never planned to be a dancer," she said, staring out the rain-streaked window. "I wanted to be a teacher. I even started college. But when Emma got placed in a home 3 states away and started having problems, I had to choose." Michael listened without judgment, his hands steady on the steering wheel. He had never heard anyone speak so honestly about struggle, about making impossible choices just to survive. "Tonight was supposed to be my last night," Sarah continued. "I finally saved enough to go back to school. But then my car died, and I realized I don't even have enough for the tow truck, let alone the repairs." They sat in silence for several minutes. The only sound, the rhythmic swish of the windshield wipers. When they reached Sarah's building, Michael was surprised to see how neat and well-maintained it was. Despite being in a rough neighborhood, Sarah had somehow found a small pocket of dignity in a difficult situation. "Thank you," she said, starting to remove his coat. "Keep it for now." Michael said, "You can return it sometime." Sarah hesitated. "I don't know when I'll see you again." Michael surprised himself with his next words. "What if I told you I might be able to help with your car?" "I couldn't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm offering." Michael turned to face her fully. "I have a good mechanic. He owes me a favor. And as for the money for school," he paused, thinking about the trust fund his grandfather had left him, sitting untouched in his account for years. He'd never known what to do with it, had never felt worthy of it somehow. "I've been looking for a way to make my life mean something," he said quietly. "Maybe this is it." Sarah's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they looked different. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" Michael considered her question. The honest answer surprised him. "Because you're not really a stranger," he said. "You're someone who gave up her dreams to take care of someone she loves. You're someone who works every night with dignity and grace, even when it's not the life you wanted. You're someone who kept walking even when your feet were bleeding." He paused, looking out at the rain. "And because I've been sleepwalking through my own life for so long, I'd forgotten what it looks like when someone actually fights for what matters." Sarah reached over and squeezed his hand. Her fingers were still cold, but her grip was strong. "What's your name?" she asked. "Michael," he said. "Michael," she repeated, as if testing how it sounded. "Thank you, Michael, for seeing me. Really seeing me." As she walked toward her building, Michael's coat still wrapped around her shoulders. Michael felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Purpose, connection, the sense that his actions mattered to someone. He waited until she was safely inside before driving away. The rain was beginning to lighten, and through his rearview mirror, he could see a light come on in one of the upper windows. The next morning, Michael called his mechanic. Then he called his bank. Then he did something he'd never done before in his 6 years at the law firm. He took a personal day. Some encounters change everything in an instant. Others plant seeds that grow slowly over time. But occasionally, on a rainy night, when two people need exactly what the other can offer, the universe aligns in a way that saves them both. Michael would learn, in the weeks that followed, that helping Sarah return to school would give him something he'd been searching for without knowing it. And Sarah would discover that sometimes the people who find us in our darkest moments are the ones who've been lost in the dark themselves. The rain stopped falling just as the first hints of dawn appeared on the horizon. A new day was beginning for both of them.